on this episode of Southern Fried Geekery.
Your laughing is going to be on our podcast. Is that okay?
You are part of the show.
Do y'all want to say hi?
Hi!
Yeah.
1, 2, 3.
So did y'all see that girl carrying around a potato?
She did have the potato, and that's cosplay accurate.
Why is she carrying a potato?
Because there's a girl on Attack on Titan, an anime and manga, who likes potatoes.
We call her Potato Girl.
That's the internet that just spoke right now.
What? Jesus Christ. So you guys want to do a podcast?
Hell yeah.
Debatable.
Let's do this. All right, guys, this is Southern Fried Geekery coming to you, recording this live from Arkansas, AnimECon, Arkansas. And we have just wrapped up I think it's the second day of the con. It's Saturday.
Sir.
Yeah, we have a special little podcasting booth that they gave us here specifically for recording this episode. It's pretty awesome.
It is an amazing car that might or may not be owned by the Sean.
Yeah, so we're using this as a quiet room.
You ever recorded a podcast out of a car?
As always, I am Caleb Alexander McKenzie.
I'm Sean, the owner of said recording booth.
I'm Jerry. I didn't come up with any good quips this week, so fuck off.
That might be the best one yet.
We have had an amazing day at AnimECon Arkansas. We've done a lot. We've seen a lot. You have subjected me to a lot. This is largely not my world, and I don't know. I may need at least a good week of therapy when this is all done.
Hey, Caleb, say anime.
Anime.
Okay,
He
thank
can be
you.
taught.
Jesus Christ,
Yeah.
I said it right for the first time today.
You guys may or may not hear this later, but apparently I have been saying anime, which is incorrect and largely shameful, and I embarrassed Jerry in front of his cult following.
You know the funny part is about your pronunciation? How it's anime, not anime, but it's manga, not manga.
Everything is wrong.
Yeah.
Manga just always sounds like the southern way to say manga.
It's just funny to me. Sorry.
Oh no, it's all good. But I've had a fairly great day, and I want to thank you guys for coordinating the Southern Fried Geekery being at this show, because otherwise, this is not my world. I would not have came, but I'm glad you guys opened up the doors for me to come into this, and I learned a lot. Seriously, I did.
I'm glad you had a good time, and it was educational.
It was. I now consider myself not completely fucking stupid. Just semi-fucking stupid. And I think I'm comfortable with being semi-fucking stupid in the world of anime. But outside of the world of anime, it has been a little bit since we have gotten together to hang out. You guys weren't on the show last week.
We were not.
Craig and I were venturing to the northern white wastes of Chicago, where we got snowed on, and where we attended C2E2, and then we were drug around to things that weren't C2E2 by our significant others, which was fun. We had a really good time.
You legitimately told me to meet you at the house an hour after you guys left, so I had to house sit. Also, I want to throw a huge shout out to everybody that showed up to that rad party at Craig's house last Saturday night. That shit was lit as fuck.
Yeah, we know. We saw everything you did on Craig's doorbell ring cam thing.
Yeah.
We need to talk about that, by the way.
About that.
Oh my.
There were some oh my moments. It was in real life. We had a great time in Chicago. If you want to hear about what that was like and hear a little bit of a recap of the con, go listen to episode 14 and then come back and listen to this one. It's episode 15.
No,
listen to them all. They're all a lot of fun. It has been, I guess, 2 weeks now since we've gotten together. And do you guys have any shout outs that we want to do?
Well, I will go ahead. And we've been talking about it, but I'm going to give it as the official shout out to the people who put together AnimECon Arkansas.
And you know what? I think that's the only shout out we need to give this week.
Yeah,
it
you
is.
guys are awesome. Laura, thanks for fucking putting it on. It's grown so much over the years.
It is the only anime-centric convention in all of Arkansas, isn't it?
Anime BluesCon.
No, in Arkansas? BluesCon's Memphis.
Is BluesCon Memphis? I thought BluesCon was further. I think there's one that's further up north.
It's the only one we attend.
The only one that matters because within 15 minutes of driving distance.
Look, that may or may not be the reason, but thank you, AnimECon Arkansas, for putting it on and welcoming us, because we contacted them just to let them know we were going to come around and maybe cut in some interviews, and they gave us a fucking panel.
They did, which I'm sorry.
So sorry.
No, but it was a really good time. And yeah, I want to third that. It was a lot of fun. Way different than what I sounded real country when I said that. It was way different than what
It's
I'm
almost
used to.
like we're on a Southern Fried Geekery podcast.
I know.
or
I went
something,
full on Loretta Lynn, y'all.
Well, dang, shoot, y'all.
Bless my heart. But so this week has been, since we came to you last time, has been a little bit busy. There has been some news that has came out, some kind of interesting stuff. If you go on our Facebook page, we post a lot of articles. Southern Fried Geekery on the Facebooks. You can find us there and jump in the conversation. I'm going to kick us off. Nightwing is leading the new Teen Titans team out of No Justice. Once that little mini-series ends that they're doing, it's a 4-part series, I think. Yeah, Nightwing's coming back to the Titans, and I just kind of want to know what Sean thinks about that, because he's our resident Teen Titans guy, or Titans guy.
I mean, Nightwing's absolute classic, and I will take. Granted, he's Nightwing. I'm gonna still call him.
He is Nightwing.
No, but I'm getting at, you rude interrupting person. That he's still a Robin to me, and he's better than Damian.
I just call him a dick.
Because yeah, fuck Damian. I'm gonna still say it.
You don't like Damian.
I do not enjoy him.
It's Damon. Damian.
Damian.
Okay.
Yeah.
I call him Robin the Fourth.
We're playing that. How many things has Caleb always been pronouncing wrong?
Every.
Now, but yeah, Nightwing coming in. I'll take that over Damian any day. And yeah, I'll be checking that out.
Very cool. I'm going to jump on that as well, because I've never been a big Teen Titans fan, but yeah, as much as I'm a fan of George Perez, and I really need to catch up on that stuff. In other news, Astonishing X-Men is going into some different hands than what it's been. It's been Charles Soule's been writing it. Off the top of my head, I can't remember who the artist has been. They've been doing a fine job. They've been doing great. Nothing super outstanding that you just really need to write home about or run and get right now. But I mean, it's been a fun story, so if you wanted to, you absolutely could. But now it's going to writer Matthew Rosenberg. And artist Greg Land is going to be doing the first part, which for some people that really will perk them up. For some, that'll push them away. Greg Land he's the type of artist that you either like him or you hate him.
I fucking love Greg Land, man.
Do you? Are you a big fan of Greg Land?
Yeah.
I like some things he does. I think he's been doing a fantastic job on Weapon X. I'll say that. And so I'm definitely going to be picking this up. Astonishing X-Men. It starts with number 13. Matthew Rosenberg he's just good. He writes a lot of good stuff. I'm super, super pumped about that.
Bit of news on my end, because I've been really enjoying Batman White Knight, and I just heard about that they are actually, DC is going with what's known as the Murphyverse. It's going to be a universe from the comic creator Sean Gordon Murphy. Basically, it's going to be in the world of Batman White Knight. And so it looks like they're going to continue that alternate universe of Batman. And they've actually laid out some ground rules, apparently, for this universe. Like, I guess they want to make sure they're sticking to a plan. Rules include the following. People who die will remain dead, which is, a very bold statement in comic books. Contrary to the popular comic book quote, there will also be a limited amount of covers to avoid overload in comic shops, and each book will come out on time. Murphy claims that each issue will include one awesome vehicle, but will not include narration balloons.
Really?
Apparently.
That's odd.
So they're setting up a standard for this Murphyverse. And, I mean, if it's going to be the quality that Batman White Knight has been, I'm in.
That's just, again, it's like, I'm not mad about this at all. It's just weird to me that DC is continuing to put out these little universal pockets. Everything is getting its own offshoot now. Like, how many branches are going to be coming out that aren't mainstream DC continuities?
Well, and I understand that, and maybe it's because I don't read a ton of any one book, especially, or any one, like, Marvel or DC. I have a couple from every company. I look at it like this: at least, like, if it's set in an alternate universe, which means they can play around with new ideas, that means they're not going to fuck up the ongoing continuity that they've established for years, but they have a great idea that sounds good at the time, and they turn Harley Quinn into a fucking roller derby bitch.
Yeah. Elseworlds type stuff.
I'd rather have Elseworlds where they try stuff and fail than make it canon and have to deal with it for years.
That's a good point. That's a very good point.
One of the things that I wanted to mention, you can totally cut the fuck out of this if you want, but I've been seeing a lot on Facebook lately there's been new, not production photos, but just kind of like sort of candid photos of the shooting of Teen Titans that's been going on. And people have been blowing up about it and really like bitching about it. And like, The most popular image that's been going around that's been really cracking me up is like they have this whole picture and it shows like the originals, the TV show, and then like the cosplayers. Yeah. But the originals is always like the cartoon, and that's like the only part of that irks me because I've seen their actual promo photos and stuff for the TV show, and I'm like, you know, after watching Arrow and all the other great CW stuff, you really can't really judge a movie or a TV show just based upon like some shit that was taken on the set, you know. You gotta wait for the stuff that they want to put out there and wait. Just give the first episode a watch or something, you know.
And I agree. I wanted to post about that because I am a Teen Titans fan, but I really try to adhere to our 50-50 rule. And I know they could add stuff in post-production or it might make things better. I've got nothing positive to say about what I've seen so far.
Well, I know a lot of people haven't, but so I'm trying to think of the right way to say this. I want to touch on that for a minute. You can not like something. It's fine to not like things. There's lots of things I don't like. There's been a lot of internet activity around those pictures, specifically the character of Starfire. Right. There's an African American woman who's playing her, and she's shown in a pink with pink hair and
she has the red hair,
purple dress.
She has a purple dress, which is Starfire's colors.
Yeah,
and I want to hold out hope because just of my comic book pureness that later on they may post production give her the orange skin. I have no problem with it being an African American actress.
Well, no, what I was going to get at is some of the backlash because of that has been some of the most racist, misogynist stuff. I mean,
oh sure.
People just saying pretty abhorrent things about her, and there's no place for that.
No,
you can not like something without delving into racism or into misogyny or just some of the disgusting things that have been said. And I've been really disappointed with the fan community a little bit for doing that.
Absolutely.
My biggest disgust with it is that the animated series, not the original, is comic book. Get right, Jesus Christ.
Oh, I agree with you 100%, Jerry. And like I said, again, it's not looking great, but like Jerry said, I'm going to give it the first episode. That's why I didn't post the story, because I didn't want to come across overly negative, because I haven't seen enough to get positive, to be perfectly honest.
Yeah, and you were about the same way before Runaways came out, right?
Absolutely. I had hesitations about Runaways, and I thoroughly enjoyed it.
Yeah. So.
Well, I want to kind of wrap up the news section here just real quick. Something that I think is going to make you really happy, and I don't know if you saw it or not. I posted it online. You are a big fan of Donnie Yen, aren't you?
I am. That is my man crush. I loves me some Donnie Yen.
He does. It makes me really happy when he uses phrases like man crush.
That is. I have to give credit where credit's due. That is my wife's term for my love of Donnie Yen. And I embrace it.
Donnie Yen just joined the cast of Disney's live-action version of Mulan, which that's really happy making. Not only is he a good actor, he's extremely good at martial arts. If the live-action version is going to be anything like the animated version, they're going to need people who are really good at martial arts because it is, it's a Chinese epic, and they're going to need those people who know martial arts. I'm glad to see that they aren't trying to whitewash anything, and that they're actually using fairly well-known, fairly amazingly talented Asian actors and actresses for it. So that's very happy making.
Yeah, they've actually done a lot of castings for Mulan this week. Actually, they just announced that Jet Li and Gong Li, are going to be in it as well. So I mean, yeah, like as far as I've seen so far, the castings are going to be on point.
I need just one more cast addition in that movie to make me super happy.
Jackie Chan.
Yes, actually.
Yes!
Because a lot of people may not know this. That man cuts record albums. He can sing.
Yeah. Oh, I did know that, actually.
Yeah. So, Jackie Chan for some role somewhere, please. Thank you.
Every time. So, in the spirit of this being kind of our anime weekend and our manga weekend, we had the opportunity, I did not, Sean and Jerry had the opportunity to sit down with somebody who works for Crunchyroll. So, why don't you tell us a little bit about that, Sean?
We managed to sit down with my friend Bryan. I've given a shout out to him before when I gave a shout out to the Crunchyroll staff who works behind the scenes, and he had enough in his time in his 38-hour a day work schedule to come talk to us about basically his going from fan subbing to working for the anime industry as a profession, and it's a really good interview. He's kind of gives a breakdown of his history and what it's like working in the industry.
Badass, dude. Well, let's take a few minutes and listen to that. I'm very curious about what he has to say.
Southern Fried Geekery.
Well, Southern Fried fam, we have a guest here that we are going to be talking to. This is my friend Bryan. I know I've given a shout out to him and his fellow Crunchyroll workers. We're here to talk to Bryan today about his career in anime. from fan subbing to working as a profession. Hey, Bryan.
Hi, Sean.
Wait, I thought you were interviewing me.
Jerry's also here to be interviewed about what it's like to sit next to Bryan.
Yes.
When we interview Bryan
It's
about his
beautiful.
actual work.
You know, when Jerry is in the room, it's like you have to give the present to the birthday boy and one to Jerry.
That's putting our relationship into perspective, guys.
That is entirely accurate. Well, Bryan, thank you for coming to do this interview with us. This is part of our anime special.
Yay, anime.
This is one of the few times me and Jerry are going to get a lot more than our manga ramen section. So we appreciate it. So, Bryan, you started off as a, let's say, fan subber online in the early AOL days, I would say, or a long time ago. You've been doing this a while.
Yeah. For fan subbing, I legitimately started. I know what year I started.
Right.
I started fan subbing in 2000.
Oh, wow.
Well, we have some listeners that weren't even born yet. I'm sure.
Possibly true.
Way to just make the room feel old.
It's true. So, how'd you get into doing this?
When I went away to college is when I finally had really fast internet. And I've always been an anime fan. So there was the Little Rock Anime Club. There were some people I knew. There were the VHS tapes. There were the super slow, small, real media file downloads. But when I went to college, I got more into the online universe. And there were a lot of media exchange programs, QMX and things like that. So I would go into those anime channels, right? And I would meet new people, meet fans, exchange files, because you couldn't get, back in the old days, you couldn't get, anime as quickly as you could now. Right. So when those services start to die, everybody moved to IRC, which is Internet Relay Chat. And so a lot of these people who were consumers of it, we all moved to IRC and we started to become producers of it. So we went from being fans to people figuring out, it wasn't that expensive to go to Japan anymore. People were learning the language. So now we became people who could make the anime and put it online for other fans. So it was for fans by fans way back in the day.
And these were shows that weren't getting translated and brought over here.
No, these were, back then, probably 2 or 3% of anime made it over. And it took years for it to happen just because of technology. And it was super, super niche. So, but, the advent of DVD, Laserdisc, proper ripping techniques so you can put it on your computer, stuff like that just accelerated the game. And it made it more accessible.
Oh, absolutely. Just give us kind of a timeline. What were some of the early shows you worked on?
As a fan subber?
Yes.
So the group I was with, we preferred to work on really old shows. So we never competed for the hot new stuff. We always wanted to get the stuff that nobody else worked on, the very advent stuff. My claim to fame was I worked on a show called Creamy Mommy. And it's actually been almost...
Giggity?
Here's the premise of the show. This young girl meets these 2 alien cats who give her power to turn into Creamy Mommy, who helps people and transform into a singing idol.
That is the most anime fucking Japanese shit I've ever heard in my entire life. And I have to go look it up now.
That's anime in a nutshell.
So it was a running joke for a while at Crunchyroll when they were trying to we're going to try to license Creamy Mommy. And I want to say that it's over 100 episodes. So a lot of episodes. I think it may have gotten licensed in some places. I want to say some company actually asked for our fan sub scripts and they re-edit them, translate, check them, and put out a disc 1. I'm not 100% sure on that. It's been some years, but I remember that being a big thing.
Well, we actually found one of those to get you to sign.
Yay!
And so you did fan subbing just for the love of anime for a while,
I did it just to I was a consumer of it, and I wanted to get involved in the producing of it, just because it was a hobby,
right?
And I didn't have anything else to do.
I really want to find one now so you can frame it, put on your wall like a platinum album or something.
I'll tell you in a second. So I worked on Creamy Mommy, and then I was a project lead on a couple of titles. There was a really famous title. I think it was called Legend of Condor Hero. It was this famous title, and it was really popular in China. and we were the only group producing it. And so that was one of our claim to fame, is that we were doing this title that, people have this love for old 80s anime when we were doing this in the 2000s, because it never came out. Mm-hmm. So people were like flocking for it. People who remembered it when they were like growing up overseas and they moved to America and they wanted to watch it again.
And so fan subbing, especially like you said, you never went for anything that was being translated already. So like, you kind of skirted around not having to worry about copyright claims, or you never did anything that was already like owned by anything in America.
Yeah, the group I was with didn't want to fight. There was internet stuff, and they didn't want to rush to do the latest stuff to get the more people to join your channel or more people to visit your website or join your forum. And back then there was that gray legal thing. Is like well, it's not out in America, but in the end, it's still copyright infringement. Let's be honest, it's all copyright infringement.
It really is.
But it was that one thing, is that if it ever came out in North America market where we were, then we would just stop. Right. And a lot of fan subbers, went with that method because they were North American based, and it's like, so it's coming out. You have a legal way of getting the DVDs, and back then you really needed to support them by buying those DVDs. Right. Companies go under.
Yeah, absolutely. So you did that for a while, and then eventually, I believe you hooked up with a group that started actually getting contract jobs, right, for actual anime companies.
So the guy, the group I was with, one of the guys, he had the foresight to see that the world was going streaming. Mm-hmm. YouTube was taking off. There was all these like Daily Motion. Right. There was a bunch of Nico Nico, which is a Japanese streaming video site, which is insanely popular. So he's like, the world is going to go streaming. And who else other than a fan sub group who can get these materials in, turn it around, put it out, have the right workflow and tenacity to do it. So he formed a company. And I said, if you form a company, I'm in. I don't know what I can do, but I want to be in on ground floor. Right. So he formed a company. He started, knocking on doors, taking people out to steak dinners, and he started getting contracts to do professional translation work for DVD release. And then it slowly moved on to, wining, dining, and meeting the people from Crunchyroll and becoming a vendor for Crunchyroll.
So what did your job end up being for that company?
So the original company, I was a subtitle timer. So it's exactly what it means, is that I would get a script, translated from Japanese to English, and I would time the English dialogue to the English text to the Japanese dialogue on the file. And then eventually the role went, I still did that, but the role became more management at the same time too, because we had more contractors and had to deal with clients and things like that. I went from contractor to actual employee.
Oh, that's awesome. And then eventually you now work for Crunchyroll. And probably the biggest anime streaming
It's like a modern day success story.
You came from nothing. Now look where you are.
You were on the streets.
You can I could tell the story, boil it down, and it sounds like, I went from fan to, doing it as a contractor, hobby job, to pro. But there was a lot of work. There was so much work and so much time and so much like dedication to, putting in that work to get to the position I am at now, that, the long story is blood, sweat, tears, cussing. But the short story is like, hey, luck. Luck is some of it, but that hard work, I would say for me, the hard work was way more than the luck.
Oh, yeah. And, you bring up the work, and I know I kind of mentioned when I gave you all the shout out, I did that because I being your friend for so long, I kind of know what you do, but can you, as much as you can tell, what is your work day? It is a lot of work and a lot of weird hours for you. I know that much.
So my general work day now is I still do subtitle timing because I like to stay in the mix of what's going on and things like that. But my job now is more management. So like my official title is Content Ops Senior Manager for Crunchyroll. Right. But we also have another company, which is what I'm usually working with, called MX International, which handles the translations and other stuff for Crunchyroll. It's a wholly owned subsidiary. And for that, I'm director of production. So my day-to-day is to make sure all our titles for certain languages, mainly English, is ready to go live the next day.
Right.
And it's to manage the teams that do all the work that takes in translating and editing and timing those titles, and making sure our product is the best that we can make it, given the time frames that we have for people to watch. And then a lot of that is interacting with my team, making sure everything is copacetic, interacting with Crunchyroll. If we have any new upcoming projects that we have to do or any requests, we do all the PV stuff. We do the synopsis translations. So that's like what I do all day, every day. And on top of that, also do manga. So I have to make sure the manga's on the site. Our manga is produced. I talk with people in Japan, our Crunchyroll team in Japan. I talk with Japanese publishers or licensors. If they have questions, they ask me directly. So that's what I do in my day-to-day, but my hour-to-hours is it's variable. So obviously I'm located in Arkansas, Central Time Zone. But I got to be available in California Time Zone, and I got to be available in Japan Time Zone. So, I'm awake. Luckily, I'm an insomniac, so I'm awake most of the time. And I only need 4 hours of sleep before I get another 8 hours, of going time.
Oh, indeed. I mean, like I said, I've known you a long time, and I've seen those. I feel it's no exaggeration to say you work 36 hours a day, 8 days a week, and it's a lot of work, and it's appreciated because like, anime is blowing up big, and I mean you are a behind the scenes guy, but you're a part of that.
And we're on our show and everything. We are like just complete advocates of like if you want something to thrive and do well, you need to spend money on it. Yeah, and you have to like. Streaming sites were good for a while, like just the illegally one. But I mean, just put your money into it because that's how you get more of that stuff over here and everything.
Yeah, I'm not going to be a hypocrite and say that I didn't do it. I did, but eventually either I won't say I grew up, but times change. Yeah. The availability of it is so simple. Then for us at least, there'd be that guy somewhere in I don't know where country saying. It's not streaming in my country. It's not streaming in my language. This is the only way I can get it. All right, man. That's more power to you. Right. Use a VPN. But, eventually you grow up. The services change. You don't need to do everything that you need before. I have boxes of DVDs that I don't watch. And I don't need them, but because they're all streaming. But I still have them.
You gotta support your fandoms, man.
So, whatever excuse that you give yourself, that's your excuse. But if you can support it any way you can, and there's a lot of haters that say watching on a Crunchyroll doesn't support it, but if it didn't, Crunchyroll would have been around for 8+ years. Yeah, it had a really shady start, but everybody goes legit.
Oh, absolutely, man. And like I said, anime's blown up bigger, and like Crunchyroll is a big reason it has.
Oh my god! Oh, yeah. Bryan just handed me a little pillow of Creamy Mommy. It's adorable.
So one year, when I went to Japan, I don't know what year it was. It was Creamy Mommy's like 35th anniversary. Yeah. And I was walking through a mall, and they were having a raffle for Creamy Mommy stuff.
Oh, nice!
And I was like, "Oh my god, it's Creamy Mommy stuff!" It's not that easy to find old Japanese anime memorabilia unless it's super popular. So I go to the raffle. I have my money. I give them my money. I spin it. The ball falls out. The two ladies working it start clapping. and so what I wanted were these 2 keychains of the cats. And so I pointed to the keychains. I don't know the language. And they were like, no. You won the grand prize. And I'm like, the grand prize was the pillow. I was like, I don't want the pillow.
I just want these keychains.
What I'm going to do with a pillow? I want the keychains. So I eventually just gave him more money and played until I won the keychains.
Oh my god.
Like grand prize winner. And keep it rolling.
That is so Bryan.
One more time. It's like 21. Hit me. 22. Hit me. Right. 27. Hit me.
No kidding. Oh, Bryan, man, that's like I said. You led an interesting life that has revolved around anime, and it's kind of become your job now. We appreciate you coming on and everything. I want to kind of like, is there? Because you mentioned you've been in Japan. You go there for work. Is there an interesting story or any kind of a funny story you can tell from anything happened in Japan?
There is a manga called Polar Bear Cafe.
Yes.
Oh yeah.
Which is a fantastic manga. We have the anime on the site, Polar Bears Cafe on the site. And the translator who did the show, that was her first show ever on Crunchyroll. So she has a real affinity for it.
Right.
And she made friends with the mangaka, the author, the writer, the drawer of the manga. And they talk on Twitter and they go back and forth. And I kind of self-invited myself to their first meeting. So,
and us.
Yeah, we were told to go home on that first meeting. Me and Jerry had to go home.
So I got to meet a very successful and professional mangaka. And, when I met her, she had, studio people with her because they wanted to come. And so it was probably the most low-key industry thing I've ever done. Because it was just 6 of us. It was 3 from America, me and 2 translators, and then, the mangaka and some people from some very high-profile studios. And, it was just a casual dinner, and then we went out and had cake and coffee at the end, and then there's an actual cafe. There's a Polar Bear Cafe in Japan, which is very popular. And the mangaka goes there to eat, and people don't know it's her because she's very protective of her identity. Yeah. So we're just in there. And this is when Jerry and Sean were there. So there was a bunch of Americans hanging out with this Japanese author in her cafe.
And nobody knows.
I love it. Like, we were going like, I wonder how many people would freak out if we were like, mangaka! Just sell her out quick. But that was a great time. And I'm going to say it on air. Thank you, Bryan, for making that Japan trip happen.
Yeah. Actually, if you've ever heard Sean and I talk about our trip to Japan, this was the dude that was responsible for it all.
It was Sean's wedding gift from me. And of course, if I give Sean a wedding gift, I got to give Jerry a wedding gift.
He's not wrong.
But Bryan, down to brass tacks, like for real though. When are you getting all of my Kamen Rider and Super Sentai stuff on Crunchyroll? Like, come on, quit holding out on me, bro.
Well, you know what? True story.
Oh.
We have Ultraman on the site.
Right.
You people didn't watch it.
Motherfucker. I'm going to make so many accounts and stream that shit all day long.
It's like, if people watch it and it's popular, then that just gives the people more reason to get other stuff. Like,
go watch Ultraman right now.
Like, okay, people like live-action spandex superheroes. Let's go get live-action spandex superheroes.
Yes.
But if you don't watch it, it's like, let's not spend that much money on live-action spandex superheroes.
Yeah. And granted, like I said, Ultraman, is not quite as familiar with, especially like this younger generation that's watching streaming anime. It'd be great if you could get Super Sentai because at least it has that Power Rangers for those 90s kids connection to it. Yeah. But, yes, go support Ultraman so we can get Kamen Rider and Super Sentai.
Stop listening to this right now. Just go watch Ultraman.
Look, every time there's people inside the company going, so we're going to get like some Super Sentai.
Well, whenever we met up with the Crunchyroll people, like a lot of them were like, yes, we want this.
And also Super Sentai is hard because Ham Saban kind of has a market on that. He's got that on lock.
Kamen Rider? They haven't had a Masked Rider series since, what, was it the 90s?
Yeah, with Black and Black RX.
But yeah, so that's Jerry's demands. We expect you to listen to him. But Bryan, thank you for coming on to the show, man. We enjoyed talking to you in our special anime special of an episode.
It is a very special. You know why? Because you and I are running the show now, Sean.
We have control. We have the power.
You know what? How about you just dump those 2 dead weights and let's just do a podcast?
I've gone mad with power, and I think we need to start our own podcast now.
The Southern Fried Geekery Extreme Anime.
Super Anime Variety Special Hyper Edition. Yeah.
XXX Zeta Kappa Delta. I don't know.
Other than the fact that Sean's been trying to end this interview 3 times.
I know, right?
hey, we can keep on rolling it, baby.
Hey, you know what? Let's just end the interview. Give a hard pause and let's just keep talking.
Which we will end up doing. Actually, though, before we do it, I did want to ask you this. Is there any last thing you want to say out there to the people, to the fans, to the world?
Shout-outs?
Any shout-outs? Anything you want to say?
Well, now I feel like on the spot.
Oh,
that's why
totally on the spot.
Moon Knight sucks.
Oh, shit!
Drop the mic, not really expensive.
And that's going to be a wrap.
Southern Fried Geekery.
All right, and we're back, and I want to again thank your friend for taking the time. I know he's a super busy man to talk to us because it's not every day you get to know some of the behind the scenes workings of that.
Yeah, like I said, he was very open. Listening there, you learned that we got an exclusive, something he has never put on record, about being a fan subber. Apparently, that's something he just never really brought up, but we got the exclusive. It was a fun interview. He had a good time. Made fun of Jerry. Always good.
Yeah, I mean, it's great whenever I can feel the butt of everyone's joke and make everyone happy and stuff.
That's why we keep you around, Jerry.
But yeah, like he said, if we're ever at a birthday party together, you better buy me a fucking present as well as the birthday kid.
It's true.
I'm just letting you know, I'll throw a huge bitch fit, and just saying, just throwing that out there.
I've never heard a more accurate phrase.
He nailed Jerry on the head, man.
These guys, I'm just saying, these guys went to C2E2 last weekend, and they haven't given me anything yet, but I'm assuming that they got me something.
No.
Because they know I'll cry.
They actually, they told me to give it to you, and I'm just keeping it.
I actually did get you something. You should listen to the opener of the last episode that you haven't listened to yet.
Christ.
I got my thing already.
No, we do have a present.
I didn't
for you.
even house
We haven't
it.
gotten it to you yet.
I didn't even house it, and I got something.
So, this is normally the portion of the show where we would jump into talking about manga and anime. We went to all little manga ramen corner. But instead
It's
of
a
doing
big bowl of manga
that,
ramen.
we're gonna have
Sure.
a big bowl of manga, like soy sauce and everything. We're really excited
Nobody
about
put
it.
soy sauce in manga. Jesus Christ, Caleb, you uncultured fuck. I'm just kidding. People probably do
In
that.
ramen? Did you say in? You said in. You can't make fun of me and then fuck up what you're making fun of. Shh. Anyway,
We're editing this out.
so
I said manga ramen, didn't
You'll scare the furries. Calm down.
as
Oh my
Sean
God.
stated earlier, we were able to host a panel at AnimeCon Arkansas where we talked about what it was like setting up a podcast. We spoke about some of the stuff that we have seen at this show, and we talked about the fact that I'm largely ignorant, and I say that in the most positive way. There is information that I don't have that I have the ability to learn, and I want to learn, and that's a lot about what we want to do with this show. But I'm largely ignorant of manga and anime, which is the correct way to say it, as I've been scolded again. And we branched out, and we were able to also get some good suggestions from the crowd that hopefully you, dear listeners, will want to seek out and consume as you spread out in your geekdom, because there is a big world of things out there, and if you only like one thing and you don't try out other things, you're going to be missing out on a lot. And I say that as somebody who needs to take my own advice, and I don't branch out into the worlds of manga and anime that much, and I'm starting to, mainly because of Jerry and Sean and the threats that they've left me. So we're going to take a break real quick, and we're actually going to listen to the panel that we recorded, and we really hope you enjoyed it. We want to thank the crowd that was there, the panelists. They were great. I want to thank you guys for doing that and let me be a part of that with you.
Thank you for being there and admitting you know nothing.
Hey, I'm glad to admit my shortcomings.
Man, I'm so glad you were able to make it, even though we didn't fucking invite you.
We did
I
want
love
our
you.
own C2E2
I love
episode
you.
without you or Craig, but it's great you showed up.
Yeah, it's never going to happen.
We were like, all right, we started our own podcast. We've gone mad with power, and we're doing our own thing now.
I do believe that you would go mad with power. That is something that's not far-fetched. Thank you for touching me awkwardly. But so yeah, again, shout out to AnimeCon Arkansas and the people who were there in the panel. So let's listen to that. Hopefully it's not absolute shit. So
50-50.
Southern Fried Geekery.
We good?
yeah, you guys want to do a panel?
I guess we're going to certainly try.
All right, hey everybody, welcome to our panel, and we are 3/4 of the Southern Fried Geekery podcast crew. It's about geek life, it's about comics, it's about manga and anime, it's about video games, a little bit of everything.
I mean, everything from pro wrestling to horror movies to just anything that nerd life and geek life brings to us.
Yeah. So what we like to try to do is we try to keep a positive spin on everything. There's no point in dragging anybody through the mud because fandom can be kind of toxic. I'm sure you guys all know that as you're fans of things. But so kind of the way we formatted the show, we all got together as friends and decided we had some things that we like to talk about, and maybe some folks would like to listen to them. You guys, anybody here listen to podcasts? Awesome.
Yeah.
Very cool.
Good people. Good people.
We appreciate that. Well, you should look us up. We're available on iTunes and Libsyn, SoundCloud, all of those fine, fun things. So what we were asked to come do a panel on podcast, and we really weren't sure necessarily. Hello person.
See, this is how they greet anime convention. I know you're new to this scene.
It is. Yeah, I'm very new to this scene. This is not my world. I'm kind of thinking.
And there she goes.
And that was did we just get cursed? Is that what?
No.
It's 50-50,
Just
really.
the opposite.
Okay. So we were asked to come do a panel on podcasting, and which is kind of cool. We've done this once or twice before, so we thought we'd start off by telling you a little bit about our podcast, which I've already done, so we can mark that one off the list. And we talk about a little bit how we got set up, in case anybody on the audience might want to do their own podcast. One of the things that we ran into when we were setting it up is, okay, we know nerd life, we know geek culture, we know how to say words, because that's kind of a thing that you have to do. What we didn't know how to do is use technology. We didn't know what all we would need.
There's occasionally this, 85% of the time, Caleb forgets to introduce us all. So
There is that.
And that might have just happened.
So 75% of the time, every time Caleb forgets to do that, and we have to re-record that bit.
Yes, I hate it when Caleb does that. I'm glad he's not here. My name's Craig. No, I'm kidding. I'm Caleb. Craig is the fourth member of our group who's not here, but I am Caleb.
I'm Sean.
And I'm your third and final panelist, the Crawler. But I go by Jerry. That's me.
He does. He's our comic relief, if nothing else.
Mainly for us to mock him for humor.
I'm here. I serve my purposes.
So one of the things we ran into when we were starting to do this podcast is we didn't know what technology we needed. We didn't know what hardware and software we could use, so we thought we'd drop a little bit of that on you guys. One thing that we did is luckily we live in the age of Google, where all questions can be answered via Google and YouTube. Apparently there's a YouTube video for literally everything.
It's true.
That you need to know. So we got online and we discovered that there are different types of microphones that we use that are unlike these that are in front of us. Some of them connect to USB. You can plug them right into your computer. Some of them connect into mixers. So that's the first step, is we went out and we bought some decent microphones. That way you have a good sound quality, so you don't sound like you're recording in a tin can. The other thing we realized is what we needed to edit things. And so none of us are independently wealthy, which is something we would like to change. So if you guys want to drop...
I'm wealthy in friendship.
If anybody wants to drop, be a benefactor and just drop thousands of dollars
upon us, we accept all donations.
Yeah. But no, there are some free recording software out there that you can use. We use a program called Audacity. It is free to download. You can upload your stuff. You can mix it. You can edit it. You can change it to an MP3, and then you can put it out into the world. And that's another question that we ran into is, well, now that we've got our microphones and we've been able to record and we've edited it and we like what we can hear, it's hard to say edited it. How do we get it out into the world? How do we make it available to people who might want to hear it? So what we found is there's a company that does this. There's a couple, actually. We use one called Libsyn. Libsyn.com, you can go onto it. It does cost, so there is a little bit of a cost to doing this. What it does is it serves as a podcast aggregate. So we upload our MP3s that we fix with Audacity, that we've done through our super cool microphones, that we recorded words because we're talented. Sometimes.
Occasionally. we can occasionally form a sentence.
Honestly, before you explain this all to me, I just assumed it was all magic.
I'm a wizard.
Magic. You were just,
I've sacrificed
children.
Yeah, sometimes that is the way it works, and sometimes I'm convinced that's how it works.
Yeah.
So what Libsyn does is it acts as an aggregate. So Libsyn takes what we upload to it, and it puts it out into the world. It puts it out into places like iTunes, where you can find us, Podbean, where you can find us. If you want to do a visual element, you can put it out on YouTube. It really spreads it out. It works it's the middleman. So instead of me having to go on 40 different websites that people pull their podcast from, it does that work for us. So it lets you upload your thumbnails, all of that stuff to put out into the world. And so that's kind of where we're at in life right now.
Yeah.
We are on this will be our 15th episode that we're doing. So we've been doing this for 15 weeks. We put out a weekly podcast. And so what we like to do is we like to jump into nerd news to talk about things that have happened out into the world, so that people who may not be plugged in as we are hear it. We go to cons like this one. I just got back from Chicago from C2E2. We did that one where we got a lot of comic book news coming out of there. Then we go into talking about what we have our little manga ramen corner. So these two guys who are the manga and anime experts. I messed up.
I told you not to embarrass me in front of people.
He warned me. I told him I was going to screw it up.
Yeah, if you can't tell, this is not his wheelhouse.
This like half an hour ago.
It's not I've drank since then. I'm grown. They are our manga and anime experts on the show. So they talk about a lot of stuff that have to do with the stuff that you're seeing here at the con. Craig and I are more plugged into the comic book world. So if it's done by Image, if it's done by Marvel, DC, Aftershock, those things, that's what we know. That's what our expertise is in. So we're able to talk about that. We also, because a lot of fandom is intersectional, so I'm also a huge football fan, and I'm also a huge literary fan. I like to read novels, and so we talk about those things.
We have
all of us
literally never talked about it.
Not yet, but it's planned. You just don't know this yet. You just follow my lead. It'll be okay.
You weren't invited to the meeting.
They don't tell me anything.
We also talk about things like Dungeons and Dragons and Pathfinder, Vampire the Masquerade, role-playing games. We try to plug into a little bit of everything.
Yep. Just recently, if anyone here follows pro wrestling, we know WrestleMania just happened recently, and they were dumb enough to let me have my own wrestling special for an episode where I got to ramble on about how much I love pro wrestling.
Yeah, we also get to meet with professionals. So we've had a few comic book creators on our show. We've had a professional wrestler on our show, which was kind of cool. I thought I was going to get suplexed, and I'm a little disappointed in hindsight, but at the time I was really glad it didn't
I'm
happen.
extremely disappointed in hindsight.
He might actually suplex me later just to see how
it may
goes
happen.
He can do that. But yeah, so that's some of the things you can do with a podcast. Now, you don't necessarily have to do podcasts about the things that we like. You don't have to do a comic book podcast or a manga and anime podcast or a wrestling podcast. If you are into television shows, I've got some friends who run a Stranger Things podcast. Yeah, she perked up.
She liked that. She liked that one.
Anything that you like or anything that you are interested in, there is probably a podcast for it. And if there's not, that's a good place for you to plug yourself into that world. Chances are, if you want to hear about it, there's an audience for that. And so you can use these tools to go into and start a podcast and to talk about these things. There's everything from, if you watch shows like The Walking Dead, Chris Hardwick, who does the Talking Dead episode, which some of you kiddos are too young to stay up that late.
They'll probably watch anyway.
They're sneaking it in secret. Those things, that's actually a podcast. He runs I think he runs the Nerdist podcast.
I think you're right.
Yeah,
I'm actually really partial to actual play podcasts.
Yeah,
with people playing D&D and everything and acting it out.
We have any role players here?
The McElroy brothers.
There you go.
Yeah,
and the Adventure Zone and everything. But that is an excellent podcast, and I recommend it to everybody.
So you guys raised your hand on the role play questions. What do you guys play? I'm putting you on the spot, aren't I? Sorry.
It's okay. One of my favorite is I usually like visual novels, and one of them is Doki Doki Literature Club.
I have no idea what you just said.
Oh.
Doki Doki Literature Club.
I've seen a Let's Play of that game.
Doki Doki Lojo Club?
Literature Club.
Oh, Literature Club. Okay, see.
Doki Doki Literature Club. It starts off very cute, then
We
it goes left.
apologize for this person on the end.
It gets pretty bad, but it's interesting.
Well, that's what's been fun for me here at this con, though, is because this is not my world. Like I said, I'm more of a comic book guy, but this is largely their world, and so they've gotten to kind of walk me around and to show me the different elements of it, and especially the different elements of what it's like to be an anime con, which is really interesting. Have any of you guys ever been to a comic con? To a comic book convention?
Batgirl has.
Yeah, of course she has. Rock on. By the way, obviously people who are listening can't see this because that's how radio works. But we were talking to a member of the audience who has a really killer Batgirl cosplay, and that's rad. So one of the differences that I've noticed, at least, is that this con, than comic conventions, there's a bigger creator element at comic conventions, which I don't think you can get with an anime or a manga convention, just because most of those people live overseas. Most of those people live in Japan. But so you still get these really cool artistic elements that you can see out here in the Artist Alley that I think is interesting, where it's largely fan reproductions of these things.
Right.
And that's just really, really cool.
Yeah, because, anyone who's been an anime fan for a long time knows that, we are probably living in the prime time to be an anime person, because that merchandise is now available. So, the fans really had to kind of produce their own art, and just, if you wanted your favorite anime, there's a chance there wasn't a part. You can't go into Walmart and buy, Ranma Half or Tenchi Muyo for some of the older stuff. So that's kind of how it started. Now, through the fans who bought that kind of stuff and have shown their love, we've hit a point to where anime is regularly available to anyone.
Yeah. Well, it has gotten mainstream enough where you can go into places like Walmart and Target and find Akira stuff. which is I think is pretty cool.
Absolutely.
What about you, Jerry? What have you noticed? You're being quiet over there.
What?
Strangely quiet.
Oh, the panel, right. No, I love anime conventions. It's a great scene. The people are awesome and really friendly. Like,
They really are.
I love cosplay.
Well, he does love cosplay. And he doesn't wear this every day. Just
You don't see me every day, Caleb.
that's true. I don't.
I
see him
might.
every day. But yeah, so when you go to comic conventions, you get these elements where the writers and the creators are there, and you're able to talk with them and connect. And so it was really interesting for me to be here and see how that element is not here, but how people are still connecting with the things that they love. You may not be able to talk to the guy who is the creator of One Piece, but there's this community of fans. There's this community of people who, I don't know if you would call them, you might call them experts, but people who have studied these things that you can talk to, and sometimes they're so knowledgeable, it's like you're getting to talk.
Oh, absolutely.
Talk to the creators.
Yeah. Cool thing about anime cons for me also is just that. Like, you go to San Diego Comic-Con, you'll be in line for 15 hours wanting to get into that Walking Dead panel to hear from the cast and crew, and that's cool. But anime cons really put out those panels where it's just like, hey, I like this show. Come on in here, and we're going to talk about that show.
Yeah.
I mean, I was here earlier yesterday, and there was a Yuri on Ice panel, and it was they perked up, and it was literally just fans, and it's cool. It's a big, just fans of a show coming together to talk about what they love.
Yeah.
And that's great. And that's, kind of coming back full circle. That's what this podcast
Absolutely
is. It was like, this got started because our friend Jerry here used to work at a comic book store. And every new comic book day, we would invade that store and take up his time, not letting him work, and we'd talk about comic books. So eventually we're like, hey, we're semi-entertaining. I think we know what we're talking about. Let's record and see if anyone cares.
3/4.
And they don't. It's
entertaining.
wonderful. No, they do. We've actually had really good listener responses. But so what Sean is talking about, a lot of what we do on our show is we try to explain other elements of geek culture to people who might not be plugged into them. So I'm not plugged into the anime culture or the manga culture, which, to be fair, manga and comics aren't much different. I mean, there's some stylistic differences, but there's not much of a substantive. I can't say words today, apparently.
A man who is podcasting can't talk.
Yeah, that's a terrible thing.
We actually made him read the first volume of My Hero Academia like a month ago.
They did. How many people here have read My Hero Academia? Anybody? No. Well, why did y'all do that to me? Really?
You're welcome.
Look, one of the guys left was dressed as one, okay? It's worthwhile. You should check out My Hero Academia. It is an amazing manga. There's a third season anime just started. I recommend that one.
It's good stuff. So, but yeah, so if you read American style comics, there's not a huge difference. Like you said, you get some artistic differences. A lot of times there's not the color that's in comics, but
right.
Other than reading left to right, you go from reading right to left, and I call it reading backwards. There's not a lot of difference. So it is a way to branch that divide between manga fans and comic fans, because there is a lot of overlap there. And so that kind of stuff, I would not have known that if I was not on a podcast or not friends with two people who are very much manga and anime fans, because that's not the thing that I consume a lot. And so what we've decided to do with our podcast is we kind of try to explain things to our listeners who might not be plugged in. Wrestling, for instance. I quit watching wrestling when I was about 14.
Nobody else?
Nobody.
Look, wrestling is redneck anime, okay?
It is.
And that's why it's fantastic.
It is kind of redneck anime. But so Sean explains a lot of what wrestling is. And in that same extent, Craig, Sean, and Jerry have all been gracious enough to tolerate me and my ignorance when it comes to manga and anime. And they tell me a lot about what it is, and they suggest things that I can go out and buy.
It makes it really difficult when you mispronounce anime.
It makes it really difficult when you speak.
You go back to being silent again.
So I thought it would be really cool for them, and I know that some of you guys are going to know all of this because this is your world, but for the people who are listening, we're recording this up here. You can't see it, but this is a little digital recorder, so all of you, your laughing is going to be on our podcast. Is that okay?
You are part of the show.
Do y'all want to say hi?
Hi!
Yeah. Cool.
We are live. There are really people here.
Yeah, that's going to
Yes.
come out
Yes.
Monday or Tuesday. We're going to put that out. So I thought it would be really cool if these guys explained to me, who is largely dumb about this stuff, what manga is and what anime is, what the difference is, and maybe name some things that people might want to go search out. Is that cool? Are you guys cool with that?
Yeah, absolutely. We've, we're going to be discussing plenty over the course of our episodes. I mean, I've been watching anime since 1993, showing my old age. But
most of these people, y'all weren't even born in 1993, were you?
They probably weren't even a thought.
in 2004.
Oh God!
Oh, yeah.
Whoa! Like, wait, there are aughts here, 2000ers. Oh no!
Well, they are the future, and you saw them perk up when we mentioned certain animes and shows.
Yeah.
They're going to keep the nerdery alive for a long time.
You mean the geekery?
Geekery, nerdery, yes, geekery. I'm sorry,
We
I'm
run a
off brand.
podcast called
I'm off
Geekery.
brand. I'm sorry. But yeah, we want to educate this poor fool.
Yes, educate me.
But the appeal of anime, because I grew up reading Western comics as well. I mean, I think a lot of people, at least when I was growing up in the 90s, especially I was reading Marvel comics, anything X-Men or Wolverine in there, was drawing us in. Then around 1993, I saw a different medium. It was an old anime movie called Vampire Hunter D. Anyone know that one? Yes.
We got some
Thank you.
hands.
Thank you.
I actually have the movie from a friend.
Shh.
Is it on DVD or VHS?
No, she borrowed it years ago and I never got around to watching it.
You're a terrible
stole
friend.
it.
Oh my goodness.
You're a terrible friend.
You need a Clockwork Orange that
That's
stuff
called
up right
theft,
now.
sir. That's not extended
The
buckle.
eyelids open.
But that movie opened my eyes because it was a very mature storytelling in a cartoon medium. At that time, there was no such thing as like anime was not part of your everyday language.
Yeah.
And so I'm watching this, and it again, anyone knows about the old days of anime being brought into America, they called it a great term called Japanimation. Yeah, cringeworthy, right?
Have you guys even ever heard of
He
that?
just showed. He
That
just
term.
showed.
Okay.
Apparently it's still a problem. But yeah, and it's like it showed that like even though there were some kind of cartoons back when we were younger too that would tackle like they did animated Lord of the Rings a long time ago.
Yeah.
It was a different feel. And I think anyone that has watched enough anime can kind of vouch as like even though Marvel Comics and the movies and they've done some animated ones too tackle that, you don't get the same kind of stories, the same kind of like character, the variety of what you can pick from anything from like I said One Piece to like Yuri on Ice to we just started Made in Abyss. It's just like it seems with anime. It seems like in yes,
But not Naruto.
not Naruto. That's just generic and bland. No, I'm kidding. But it is.
We just lost half the audience.
I know. Don't leave us. But yes, it's like I feel like anime and manga. It's you get a large variety, and they're not, and because it's an accepted medium ever since the days of Astro Boy.
Yeah.
Where anime really like the birth of anime, that they feel they can tell a variety of stories and like that, and it's kind of a mass appeal. You'll see people from kids going to school reading manga to a businessman riding the train reading a manga. And it's just got universal appeal. And while there's definitely mature and good stories in the Western audience too, it's I don't know. I'm having trouble finding the exact words, but I think if anyone watches or watches enough anime, reads enough manga, kind of knows what I'm getting at. It's like it's a different style because it's a whole different culture.
Right.
It's very cool. Got anything?
Yeah, no. I'm a '90s kid, so that was like the heyday of anime.
Definitely. I
Great
mean,
stuff. Toonami and Adult Swim and all that stuff started around the time. I always just go off of the whole premise of Stockholm syndrome when it comes to anime. I feel like if I push something in someone's face enough, eventually they'll get into it, and I feel like that's how it's been with most of these guys, most of my friends. It's like, hey, here's a Gundam. Check this out. Do this, giant robots, and One Piece. And I mean, that's been my biggest thing. Him and I are actually going to be in the My Hero panel tomorrow, so that's gonna be a good time. But yeah, no, it's just such a great I don't know. I got to that point to where I liked anime and manga so much more than comic books, just because in comic books you get a creator that maybe is on the run for 15 to 20 issues. So you can say oh, hey, this 20 issues of Iron Man is amazing, but don't read anything before it or after that. But when you go and look at something long-running like Naruto, One Piece, Bleach, My Hero Academia, or anything like that, you could be it's all good because it's one person on it. So you're kind of seeing them grow as an artist and a creator and everything. And it's just I just really like that concept instead of bouncing around on creators and everything like that.
Yeah, that makes sense.
It just really makes you like the longevity of it and everything it just makes you fall in love with the characters, and all the emotion and stuff that's put into to anime and everything is just really great.
So now, do you guys think that there is a big difference between manga and anime in the culture? I mean, obviously, I know I'm not that dumb, guys. I know manga you read, I know anime you watch, but as far as the fandom goes, and the way that's consumed, do you think there's a big divide between the culture?
Much like I would say like the Marvel movies to comic books, you got those purists who prefer to read the books because the movie adaptation may not be 100% accurate.
Yeah, we call those people right.
Well, then, if you were in Japan, then you would probably feel because there is quite a bit of issues with anime sometimes when they adapt from a manga. Sometimes there are certain manga creators that put out a book once a month, which I know sounds kind of normal over for Western books. But when you put out 2 chapters and they're like, hey, we want to make an anime of this, they're like, okay, cool. So the anime production goes a lot faster than a manga production, and they have to make up an ending.
Right.
Sometimes to their series. So, like, after they deviate or they change little things or do the awful filler episodes, I think most anime fans know about those.
Well, maybe not. What do you mean by filler episodes?
Filler is basically when they got too far ahead or caught up, should I say, to the manga, and they got to make up a short episode where, I don't know, what's a random Naruto filler? David.
Well, I thought Naruto was the filler.
Naruto is.
Well,
but like they have to make up their own little short story, a few episode stories that's never was in the manga.
Yeah.
Sometimes they're good, sometimes they're bad. And so I would say, like, yeah, in Japan there are some manga purists who only read the original works of the creator.
Okay.
Yeah, and I mean, like, some fillers actually pretty decent.
I said some are good, some are bad.
Like you'll just have an episode-long filler, and that's it. Like, this whole thing that they've been doing lately is they'll split it up into, like, 12 to 25 episodes a season to let the manga get far enough ahead. And I really like that concept because it cuts down on filler and it boosts the animation on it.
Very cool.
Yeah. So, I mean, that's always a plus. And then, like, you have a lot of times whenever they're translating something from manga to anime that because the channel and stuff that they're putting it on, they'll have to censor more stuff than what they had in the manga from the anime. So it's pretty interesting.
Okay.
How some of that works sometimes.
So do you feel like maybe the mangas in some cases are geared towards a more adult crowd versus maybe the animes are geared towards maybe an all ages consumption?
Yeah, somewhat.
Somewhat?
To an extent, because, like, if they take a mature manga that's aimed at an older audience, and they adapt it to anime, it's being aired on Japanese television. They take an anime, at the top of my head, I'll say Terraformers. Okay. Was a manga, mature sci-fi, hyper-violent, and they made it an anime series. But because it airs, like, we get it over here on either streaming services or straight to DVD, but they still have the same issues of airing it on cable. So, like, this hyper-violent anime, when it came time for the violence, like, half the screen was blacked out.
Okay.
It kind of took away from, if you're watching it for the violence, for the stuff, it kind of takes away from the enjoyment. So you get, let's say, just like in Western comics, you get the pure adaptation from the original source material. And to Jerry's point, it, of course, is more so because it's the same creative team. Either it's a single writer and artist is the same guy, or there is occasionally a team. So I would say some people prefer the manga because it's the purest form of the idea.
Cool. Well, so one thing that I've learned, I kind of learned here at the con today, and really I had no idea, is how open the anime and the manga community is to accepting people. Mm-hmm. I think that's really cool. I come from a world of American-style comic books, and a lot of times perceived wrongly. I think the general public kind of perceives comics as being mostly for men. In a lot of ways, there are these very masculine characters. It seems like anime and manga has kind of been able to overcome, or maybe never even had that problem. Like, I'm looking out here at the audience, and honestly, we have a largely female audience, and I think that's wonderful. I think that's absolutely one of the coolest things. And when you look out at the different cosplayers and the different characters you see around, there's a very female-driven market, and gender bending is a big thing too. Apparently, there's what did you guys call that?
Crossplay.
Crossplay, yeah, for the cosplay, which where women dress up as male characters and males dress up as female characters, and I think that's really cool how recognized that is and how just accepting that is. Why do you guys think that is? What do you think about the manga community and the anime community makes it easier to blend those elements that Western culture largely is still taboo?
I mean, because it's awesome. So,
Well, okay. So I tried to give Jerry a chance. I think a large part, especially like I said, why the female audiences really appeal to anime, because early on, and maybe some of it at first kind of started off as cheesecake, but after a while, I would say definitely around the 80s anime, the strong lead of an anime would be a woman, right, or would be female. I mean, early on, like one of the earliest animes they brought over to here was Sailor Moon, which was an all-female cast who didn't have to be rescued. Okay, occasionally a tuxedo mask to throw a rose and interrupt, but more or less, it was always a strong female lead. That's always been a strong component in anime and manga.
I actually know this reference. I'm pretty proud.
I'm so proud of you.
You learned something.
But I think that's a big reason as far as like they've always been kind of open. Now, like I said, occasionally you would get the female character that wasn't just there for the cheesecake,
right,
or whatever. But they've never shied away from going, hey, I have a story about a badass, and I'm gonna make it a woman, and it's been accepted. There was no, oh, Thor's a woman now. We get over here.
Yeah, the audience is way more open.
Yeah, absolutely.
And that's does that come from Japanese culture, or is it just a thing? Is it just something that happened on its own?
Well, speaking of Japanese culture, not I've ever lived there, but obviously I've been obsessed with it for years.
Right.
Is that especially like many cultures though, like women weren't in the forefront. They weren't always emphasized. So like I said, it kind of started off at first as like the Barbarella kind of just cheesecake thing, but there was kind of a revolution when they started to want to write strong female characters and it, leading to a broader audience. Okay. So yeah, because it got accepted a lot quicker than it's still not even accepted here.
Very cool. So in manga, in the visual medium of it, are there different types of art forms? Like if you read comics, as I'm reading American style comics, you can look at different people. You can look at artists like Riley Rossmo, and he's got his own independent style. You look at guys like Tyler Crook, he's got his own style. Mm-hmm. You look at the guys that are in from the House of Ideas, kind of the Marvel mainstream guys that have a house style, and DC as well. Is there that element of different artistic influences in manga? And could you name a few? Like give some examples that I can
there's plenty of different, because in Japan, instead of it being like how we have monthly releases of comic books and everything over here, well, they have weekly magazines that come out. We used to have them over here. Called Shonen Jump was one of the biggest ones.
Yeah,
and that's what like One Piece, My Hero, Naruto, Bleach, and all that was printed in. But whenever him and I visited Japan, they just have like a plethora, and it's just for all different ages and then genders and then like adult stuff and everything like that, and like just the art for all of them are really different.
Right, like they generally categorize them, especially in like the main releases. Like you mentioned, Shonen Jump. Mm-hmm. Shonen is usually referred to more like kind of a boy. So you get like the more action, like One Piece, My Hero Academia. But there's the opposite to that is shoujo, mm-hmm, which is largely aimed at a female audience. And you can see that Sailor Moon comes from that. That art style you see is a bit different. Although, like I said, and that's just the typical example, I guess you could say, because it's a broad range. Like you can look at One Piece and see kind of the goofy but detailed artwork. Then you take it to a horror manga that I'm a big fan of, called like Uzumaki, where it's a lot more detailed. That's the one I lent you. I don't think you've had a chance to read yet.
I have not.
So it kind of breaks down the genre and target audience in a sense, but it's also like I said, there's a lot of women creators, and they just from their own what they like to see, it's drawn a bit different. Okay. So it kind of breaks down more to genre instead of necessarily companies, but there's always the influence. Like Oda, the creator of One Piece, mm-hmm, worked under Toriyama, the creator of Dragon Ball Z. So there's always a little influence. And My Hero Academia creator, he worked under the One Piece creator.
Oda.
So yeah, Oda. Very good.
I said a name.
You said a name. So
I get a cookie.
So of course you see the influence from your teacher, your senpais.
Right.
Yeah, so so you kind of get like that. Now I would say it would break down more into genre more so than just a personal artist. Like they kind of you're influenced by your predecessors.
Okay. Yeah. So the genre is the overarching pull to it, but each creator has their own nuances.
Indeed, and because you may be in the shonen area, but there's that variety from either more comedic shonen to more action oriented. So you'll get different art styles into that. Either that's every manga creator gets an editor, and the editor kind of pushes them into the direction they need to be that fits their style. So little influence in there as well.
Awesome. Well, then, Jerry, what do you look for in that art? What is it about the art that draws you to the books that you like, and maybe what is it about some of the books that you're not as interested in? Is it the art that pushes you away, or is it the story?
Well, I actually, whenever I'm going into a new manga or anime, it's not the art at all. I'm more interested in story-based or what the particular aspects of it are and everything like that. Because they have a lot of growth in their series, because we've talked about them being like really long-running and stuff like that, and that's one of the cooler aspects of anime and manga is like the growth of the characters and everything like that. Because in regular comic books, here, if you change something significantly on a character, people rage and bitch and moan about it.
Yes, they do.
Yeah. So, but whenever they do that in manga and everything, it's very fluid, and it's like a change that the character has to take and stuff like that to better increase themselves. Plus, giant robots, you put those in anything.
Giant robots, they tend to help. Sean, same question. What do you look for? What is it about the art that draws you into the books you like?
With art, especially, it's just whatever looks appealing. And I guess it does depend on the type of manga or anime that I'm watching. Like a comedic one can have a little bit more of a looser style, as long as it's fitting. You don't want something that's like ultra simplistic and it's supposed to be serious. But I don't know. I watch a variety, from anything from action to comedy to romance. And as much as I hate the sports ball, as you do know, I know some anime fans can definitely attest that anime can make anything interesting. I've watched soccer anime. I know I mentioned Yuri on Ice.
Yeah,
that's a figure skating anime.
Do we have any Yuri on Ice fans out there?
Fans?
Should I watch Yuri on Ice? Is that something?
Yeah.
Okay.
What's that? Keijo.
Oh, yes.
The sexy gladiator battle they won. American Gladiators. You remember that old show?
I like sexy gladiators.
Yeah, but these are women in bikinis attacking each other with their regions.
I'm now horrified. I'm now terrified. I'm also terrified that
it's not weird.
That came from somebody in a onesie.
She is comfortable in that onesie.
That onesie.
It's Stitch onesie.
That's even more terrifying.
Ohana means family.
Ohana means family. That's going on the show.
That's good. I like my Stitch voice. I try very hard.
So we've got a little bit of time. Does anybody have any questions about our podcast or about podcasting in general?
Or why he doesn't watch anime?
Yes, David. First question. What did you have?
Yeah. How many Naruto?
Oh, never mind.
No, ignore this man. Ignore this man.
I used to be.
Used to be.
Are you even old enough to used to be anything?
Yes.
You're losing us listeners. What are you doing? It's on a downward spiral real quick.
So I kind of want to take an audience poll, and this is just so maybe we can so maybe some of our listeners, when we put this out, maybe it'll open up their world to some new stuff. And we'll start with this front row. What is a manga that somebody should read, or an anime that somebody should watch? You right here. You can come up here. We're gonna put you on the spot so people can hear you. First off, what is your name?
Fatia.
Fatia. It's a beautiful name.
Thank you.
So, what is a manga that I should read, or an anime that I should watch?
There's one that I watched. It's the only anime that actually made me cry. It's called Your Lie in April.
I've heard good things about that.
Yeah.
Okay, we get that. Wow.
Yeah.
Apparently, it's good. So, what's it about?
So, I'm trying to remember.
So it's not that good. You just the name was better than the show, right?
Very complex. It's very hard to explain.
It's hard to break it down.
So it's about this guy who all his life has been forced to play the piano, and his pianist by his mother, who is sick, and
This sounds like a horror show.
and he enters in a competition and he sees this girl that he really likes, and they start to get a relationship. As friends, of course, but yeah.
So boy meets girl, boy likes girl.
And she plays the violin.
Bands happen.
With beautiful music.
Yes.
Orchestra happens, sir.
Well, that's kind of amazing.
It's supposed to be very good.
Awesome. Well, thank you, Fatia. I will try to check that out. I think you're next. You look really excited. Jump up here. What's your name?
Maggie.
Maggie? Maggie, what is a manga that I should read or an anime that I should watch?
Black Butler.
Black Butler. Tell me about Black Butler. This sounds slightly racist. So.
No, it's not. It's not. I swear. But so I haven't exactly finished it, so I don't know the entire one. But
okay.
What I do know is it starts out with CL Phantom Hive. He's 12, but he turns 13 in the middle of season 1. And basically, what happens is his parents at the age of 10, I believe, were murdered. His entire manor just got burned down, and he wants revenge.
Are you sure you're not watching Batman?
Trust me, I am not, because
yeah, Batman.
Very cool. So there's some cross influence there.
Maybe the good old orphan hero story is common worldwide.
But he makes a deal with a demon who he names Sebastian, who looks a bit like his father, and so basically how the contract of a demon works is the more visible the contract symbol is, the stronger it is. His is on his eye, so it's very strong. And so basically, whatever he says Sebastian does. He's his butler. That's where the name Black Butler comes from. And the contract is he gets revenge from his parents, and then Sebastian eats his soul.
Awesome. Well, thank you. That's awesome, Maggie. Did you have one?
Yes.
Jump on up here. Come tell us about it. What is your name?
My name's Alora.
Alora, what is a manga or an anime that I should read or watch?
It's called Fruits Basket, and I haven't watched it in a really long time, but it is so good.
That's good.
It's about this girl, and I can't remember her first name, but her last name is Honda. But her parents die, and so she moves in with her grandpa, but her grandpa can't take care of her because his house is getting remodeled, and so she moves into the forest.
His name wasn't Alfred, was it? Because that's not his grandpa, that's his
Another
butler.
orphan story, yeah.
Probably not. But she moves into this forest, and she goes to school, and she sees this, very popular boy named Yuki. And he sees her, and she's like, hey, why are you living in a tent? And she's like, oh, nothing. And he's like, oh, you should move in with me. And so she moves in with him and his uncle and this other boy. But the family that Yuki is a part of is part of the Chinese calendar and all of these. Mm-hmm. And whenever they are hugged by a member of the opposite sex, they turn into their thing, into their animal.
The animal.
So if I am the Chinese zodiac of the dog, if I get hugged by a man, then I turn into a dog. And that's basically the premise of the story. And it's her and this family and falling in love. And there's almost a love triangle, kind of, but it gets resolved, and it's really nice.
Very cool.
Yeah.
Romantic comedy.
Yes, it is so good.
It's a classic.
I watched it in 4th grade. It's the best. But yes.
Thank you. I think you jumped up a while ago. One of you did, no? Did you not? Is that not a thing?
I have one.
All right, well, come up here and tell us about it. Yeah. What's your name, man?
I am Dade Little.
Dade? Awesome.
Yes.
Tell me about a manga I should read or an anime I should watch.
There is an anime. It was actually made after a novel, not even a visual novel, a full-on novel. Shinsekai Yori. It takes place in the future after society has regressed. Very backwards. But,
or not, if you look at certain things happening.
Depending, yeah. Yes, in this universe, ESP exists, and the entire society is revolved around controlling the mass without letting them really know it. And it's about, the story follows this group of friends, and it's more of a coming-of-age story. In the beginning, you just have these young, naive kids going about their day, learning about the different fairy tales that they're given about the ogres. And as it goes along, they've learned that these stories of ogres...
These kind of fantasy fairy tale stories.
Yes, kind of. But they actually take root in events that have happened in the past. In this world, if you kill someone using your kinetic powers, then your body literally kills itself as penance. But
that's kind of how drinking works sometimes.
But ogres, however, are people that were born without that sense or the sense of life or death, similar to how some people may call a sociopath.
Yeah.
But this actually happens in the story. One is born and actually ends up slaughtering an entire village on their own because the normal people can't fight back against it because they're not programmed that way.
That sounds insane and amazing. Well, all right. Well, thanks, man. Well, I think we're going to wrap this up because we were... Oh, wait, hang on. We're not going to wrap it up.
We can meet you right after the panel.
Yeah, we have to wrap up
meet
the
us
show.
out there. We can.
But we love to get suggestions for anyone else. We just have to end the panel because they got someone else coming in after us.
Yeah, they're going to kick us out. But did you guys all have a good time?
Yes.
I like to know that we had a good time. Again, we are the Southern Fried Geekery podcast. You can find us on Libsyn. You can find us on iTunes, Google Play, Stitcher. You can find us on Podbean. You can find us anywhere where some of the better podcasts are served and probably some places that they're not. We all hope you do. We all hope you have a good time. We also have an Instagram and a Twitter feed. We're at SFG Podcast, where you can go on there and see pictures from the con that he's taking. You can go on there and chat with us. We have a Facebook group, Southern Fried Geekery. Jump on there. We post news. We post articles. We post about comics, manga, anything and everything. If there's a fandom for it, we try to include it. We try to just make a positive spin on places, on the things that we all like. We really don't let trolls jump in. No ogres that are destroying villages because we don't need that kind of negativity in our lives. So if that sounds like something you might be interested in, join us. We'd love to have you. If nothing else, y'all go forth and love some manga. All right, welcome back. We hope you really enjoyed that. That was fun. That was fun.
That was a blast.
Yeah, and if you need some anime Stockholm syndrome, I'm your boy.
That's true. That's true. He will grind. He will grind just these things in your face until you just do them.
And it's as creepy and dirty as it sounds.
It is. It really, and which that's apparently a big part of the manga and anime world and cosplay world is grinding, creepy, and dirty.
It happens, bro.
Whoa.
Okay,
you're cutting that out, right?
I don't know. So let's talk about the con though. Let's talk about what we've seen while we're here, just outside of the things that we've done. What are some of the things that you guys have seen? What did you buy anything? Did you pick up anything?
Oh, I bought way too much, as is tradition at any con you go to, especially when I go to an anime con.
Especially when he goes with me.
Yeah, Jerry's a terrible, terrible human being for your wallet. But I picked up a couple of gifts for the wife. She likes little cute things, so I got her a plush narwhal. That's an ice cream cone. If you know narwhals, they're the horned whale, and that was ice cream cone.
It's freaking adorable. Okay.
Don't do it justice. I may have to put a picture up on there. I've got her a couple of things of I'm going to mispronounce this, but the fake egg can come fight me. It's called Gutitama, the lazy egg.
No, you actually got it spot on, dude.
Oh, nice.
Yeah,
there's a couple little porcelain figures for that. I spoiled myself with a statue from an anime series I'm a huge fan of called Ranma Half. If anyone knows that series, they know that Ranma's father turned into a panda, and I've got a panda statue of him holding a sign that you can ride on, and it's adorable and awesome. As well as I got the statue to go along with a statue I bought in our Japan trip from ReZero. In Japan. I got the character Rem. I got her sister Ram. So Ram. I know it's hard to enunciate.
They weren't very original in their name picking.
They're twins. It's got to be. Shut up, Caleb. You don't know.
It's like they pulled out of Eddie Vedder's School of Vowels.
You don't know anime, okay? Calm down. Oh, and my Final Fantasy love continues. I got a Moogle, which I'm not going to go into detail about those bat mice creatures from Final Fantasy, but it's Christmas. I got the Christmas themed one. It's cute. That's what I got.
Well, throw a picture up of that stuff on our Instagram for everybody, including me, to see. Yeah. What about you, Jerry? Did you pick anything up?
No, I found this really awesome booth. It's called a Red Robin, and they had some delicious fucking alcohol beverages at it. And it was okay. Yeah, no. But seriously, there's this booth here of this group that I need to tag.
and it's a store from Memphis, and they're usually here at this convention. So I'm always excited about seeing them because they have a lot of Gundam models. Like they always have something that I'm fucking looking for. And so yeah, I grabbed a couple of models that I cannot wait to build.
Now,
it's really special.
So I want to take a moment to shout out to you and the reason that you got these Gundam models. You actually host and we've spoken about it before, you host a Gundam model building group, right?
Mm-hmm.
Why don't you just take a minute to tell me about that?
Oh, it's just called Gunpla and Chill. It's a little side project I'm working on. We meet once a month, and then we usually meet the last Sunday of every month. And then we've started a new thing where we meet also the second Sunday of every month to do a workshop where one of our friends who won our last competition is going to show us how to do like weathering and battle damage and just painting in general and all that stuff. So we're actually doing one tomorrow. So it's our first one, and I really can't wait to see what all he produces for us. I'm ready to build some shit, man.
That's awesome, man. Well, I found something for me to buy too. I bought an awesome Marvel shirt.
Oh my god!
I bought an awesome Marvel shirt at the anime convention.
Cultured swine.
Hey, it's really cool. It's got some of my favorite characters on it.
Awful.
But no, I really did enjoy walking around, seeing all the things. It's an anime con, at least this one, is completely different than a comic convention. You don't have the access to creators, and so you get an appreciation of these things, and a lot of it's mass produced, but you get these there are artists here. You get these fan renditions of the things that they like, and there's some gorgeous art being done. And so it's really neat to see how just the fan culture has kind of grown in the vacuum of having access to the creators that we take for granted, at least in the comic side of things. Having access to the writers and the artists and being able to go to cons and getting original sketches by the creators. There's this culture that's grown up in the vacuum here of people that just really appreciate things that they didn't have access to, so they created it. And that to me it's fan art plus. It's just it's ridiculous, some of the things we saw. And then of course behind that you also have some of the amazing cosplays that people have just taken painstaking hours and thrown together. And I'm developing a respect for cosplay that I necessarily didn't have before.
You were usually pretty irritated by cosplay in your convention goings.
Now I do want to say that I do still get irritated, and even in here I got irritated for a little bit because you're coming to a crowded convention, and there's some huge cosplays that are just kind of ridiculous, and they're trying to go down narrow hallways, and they're inside places where there's booths, and that to me is a little bit stupid. But outside of that setting, the painstaking hours of craftsmanship that go into these costumes is really cool. And while it's not something that, I mean, you're in cosplay as we record this, and they're amazing. It's not necessarily something that I'm into, but I just want to say that I absolutely love it.
Not into yet.
No.
What's going to happen?
I might do drag at some point.
Hey, you can cross-play all you want, brother.
And that's another thing I wanted to mention, that, so at least and we spoke about this a little bit in the panel that we did, we live in a fairly conservative state. We live in a fairly conservative city. And there are things that I've noticed in the anime and the manga community, at least inside the walls of this convention, where people are comfortable to be themselves. There's a lot of what you call cross-playing, which I think some of the outside world might call cross-dressing or drag even, where there are men dressed up as these really elaborate female characters, and then the same token there's women who are dressing up as characters who are masculine. We saw a lot of couples walking around that were the same, they were gay couples or bisexual couples, at least the same gender, that they holding hands and just being fairly freely themselves. We saw some straight couples that were women and men, where the men were doing crossplay, and where their significant others, their wives or girlfriends, be it what they may, were just as proud as could be. They were just very accepting. And for me, that expression, that identity expression is heartfelt. And for me, it's a very positive experience to see those things. And I like that, to me, meant a lot to see, especially especially in our state. And I don't even know that we would necessarily get that at a comic convention, because comic conventions aren't always the most open, accepting places. And so that's something I really appreciate from the manga and anime community, that there is this freedom to be yourself and almost this encouragement to drop social boundaries. And I think that's really cool.
Absolutely.
Well, it's been a long day. It's been a long con. So we're going to get ready to get out of here. But first, let's take an opportunity to get ahead of ourselves a little bit and look at some books that are coming out next week. Sean, do you want to kick us off?
Absolutely. This is it's been so long since we actually recorded an episode. I don't remember if Usagi was the one I recommended. I recommended Usagi Yojimbo as the one I'm looking forward to on episode for issue 1. Following up, issue 2 is coming out next week. Continuing the Kirishita story arc that I talked about last time, about the Christians in ancient Japan. This one description goes as Usagi and Inspector Ishida identify the recent murder victims and find out what their backgrounds hint at much larger conspiracy. With the key piece of evidence robbed off the corpse by a thief, however, our daring duo must race against the clock to retrieve it before the killers do. Sounds interesting, and like I said, this arc is actually covered a part of Japanese history that even I'm not too familiar with, so I'm super excited for it.
Sounds amazing, dude. Yeah, really enjoyed the first issue, and really enjoyed listening to you talk about it. Hey, Jerry, what are you reading next week?
Well, I actually just found out that Black Hammer is coming out with a. It looks like, I can't tell if it's I think it might be a one-shot because it's actually continuing the series, or it might be just the title of their second story arc, but it's Black Hammer Age of Doom. And I'm really glad that I read the description of it before you went to me, because it actually has spoilers for it in the series. So if you want me to read it, I will, but it really spoils the last stuff that happened in the last issue. But it's picking up immediately where we left off. Lucy Weber has become the new Black Hammer, and right as she's about to reveal to our heroes how they got stuck on the farm and can't escape, she vanishes, which is fucking insane because everybody since issue 1 has been trying to figure out how the fuck these superheroes got stuck on this farm. Now our new Black Hammer finds herself trapped in a gritty world filled with punk rock detectives, emo gods, anthropomorphic humans, absurdist heroes, and many more weirdos in a mad world in which there's no escape. So maybe what I'm thinking is, this is either the start of the new part of the title, the new storyline in it, or it's a one shot in between getting back to the main title with a story on her. So it is Jeff Lemire. We've got Dean Ormston on art, Dave Stewart's doing colors, and Dean Ormston's also doing the cover. So I fucking love me anything Jeff Lemire, so I am along for the ride on Black Hammer Age of Doom #1.
Yeah, it's all of even those the offshoots have been really good. The Dr. Star and those stuff have been really, really good. People should definitely check those out. Well, mine is probably going to be the least surprising of the stuff going in the next week, because it's a monument in a lot of ways. It's a landmark in comics. It's something that I don't know has ever happened before. Action Comics, which is in a lot of ways gave birth to modern superhero comics. It was, with Superman. It turns 1,000. Action Comics 1000 comes out next week, and that's huge. Like I said, it's a landmark in comics history. It's a landmark for the Boy Scout that Man of Steel is. And I'm really glad to see this happen in comics. It's also Dan Jurgens' last issue on Action Comics, and he's had a great run. He's done some really great stuff. He got me on the title, and I'm not a very big Superman fan, so he pulled me on it. It's also, we're saying goodbye to Dan, and we're saying hello to Brian Bendis. It's where we're going to get the first Brian Bendis influence on Superman. And then going forward, Brian Bendis is in charge of Action Comics and Superman, which is huge because, we spoke about it on another episode where he left Marvel that he's been almost a puppet master at Marvel for the last 15 years, and now he's with DC. So, yes. And so, yeah, I'm really excited about that. And you should get that out. It's not every day. It's literally it's never been a day that a comic book has hit quadruple digits. Right. So,
And I mean, kind of speaking on that too, Spider-Man 799 comes out next week, and they're doing that Red Goblin story arc, and I'm really, I just picked up 98, 97 a couple weeks ago, and it is pretty fucking awesome. I'm enjoying me some ASM.
Well, right on, dude. Well, do we have any last things that we need to cover as far as manga and anime goes, or comics, or anything else? You got anything else you want to say?
Last thing I want to add is keeping in with the theme of today, and it's still ongoing. If you've got any kind of anime or manga recommendations or stuff you want to hear about, hit us up on any of our social media outlets, and especially recommend stuff for Caleb because he needs more in his life.
I do. Well, and Craig, Craig has his few manga and anime things.
Just you.
Just me? Just for me?
Recommend to any of us, because as big of fans as me and Jerry are, there's no way in hell we've read them all. Yeah. So we'd love to hear from y'all.
Pretty much.
Right on, yeah. And so you might be thinking, well, how do I do that? How do I reach out to you guys? Which is a good segue into this last little bit, because Sean's amazing. We're going to fist bump. You can email us at southernfriedgeekery@gmail.com. It's, if you look on the header where you got your podcast from, it spells it out right there for you. Yeah, shoot us your emails. Let us know what you're thinking about the show. Let us know what your questions, comments, or concerns are. We would love to hear it. You can also come find us at our Instagram and our Twitter pages. We are at SFG Podcast on both of those sites. Connect with us there. We're throwing up pictures not only from the con, but we threw up some from C2E2. We're throwing up panels of comics that we're reading every week, panels from mangas that we're reading, wrestling pictures, just anything and everything that the broad scope of fandoms that we cover here on the show. You can also find us at our Facebook group where we're sharing articles, we're chit-chatting, we're starting fights, we're doing a number of these things. We love to connect with you guys out there that are listening to us. It means a lot to us that you take the time to listen to our shows. It really does. That's not just something we say. It really does. Time is the most valuable thing that you can spend, and the fact that you chose to spend some time with us, it means a ton. So reach out to us. We would love to hear from you, love to connect with you. If you get a chance to and you have enjoyed what you heard, and as always, we really hope you have, get on iTunes and rate and review us. That lets other people who are looking up our podcast know how we're doing. It lets us know how we're doing, and it also gives us a little bit of a bump, so iTunes will spread us around a little bit more, and more people will hear us, which is always nice, because we like it when people hear us. If nothing further, and I don't think that there is, you guys should go forth and love some manga and comics.